Well, first of all, let me thank everybody for joining us. Appreciate you spending some time with us. I want to thank you. For those of you in North America, good morning. For those of you in Europe and the Middle East, good afternoon and good evening. We've got folks joining us from all over the world, and we certainly appreciate your time. I'm Tobin Arthur, the CEO of AngelMD. I want to introduce a couple of folks on our team. I'm going to start off with Bob Velez, who heads up our corporate development. Bob is based in London. And Mike Szymanski, who organizes and produces these calls. Mike is the head of financial operations. You'll hear from Mike throughout this particular call. And I want to introduce Dr. Katie Richardson, who is on the call. Katie is the head of our clinical relations. So she really runs this growing network of physicians. We've also got Murdoch Kalegi, who is our executive medical director, a fantastic new addition to the team, and a physician with extensive entrepreneurial background. Our chief medical officer, Dr. Mark Freumsen, is also on the phone. We are very fortunate to have a terrific physician team. I also want to introduce my colleague, our chief strategy officer, Mike Raymer. For those of you who don't know Mike, Mike used to be the head of global strategy at GE Healthcare, the head of global strategy at Microsoft Healthcare, and is representative of the quality of the folks that we have on our team, both on the finance side, the healthcare side, business side. We really have fortunate to have a terrific team. Our goal, look, first of all, was full stop to change the way in which early stage healthcare companies are sourced, financed, and advised to create better outcomes, both for the entrepreneurs, for the investors involved in those companies, and ultimately for patients. We've been very fortunate to have one of the largest networks of medical startups in the world on our platform, kind of organized into three big buckets: therapeutics, medical device, digital health. And our model is very simple in some ways, and that is we've built a very large social network centered around healthcare innovation, and physicians sit at the center of that network. Their expertise is critical in healthcare. Physicians influence 80% of the spend in healthcare, either directly or indirectly. We have a belief that not only do we want to make great decisions upfront with companies that we're presenting to our network, but we want to help support companies post-investment. In fact, the day that our network invests in a company, we put the network together to get behind that company and help build for a strong outcome. We've obviously all gone through a pretty unprecedented period with COVID over the last couple of months. And this has created some unusual opportunities in the healthcare space for disruption. And you're going to hear from one of the companies today that has a very big year ahead of them as a result of that. Mike Szymanski is going to guide us through today's program. And I will wrap up at the end just talking a little bit about what you'll see next week on next week's call and the call the following week. Again, this call is designed for our growing institutional partner network, which is a great network. We're very excited about this. It's a new network that we are opening up AngelMD to participate in. It consists of family offices, sovereign funds, corporate investors. And I'm very excited about the two companies today, both Zephyr Sleep Technologies, that's doing some very interesting things in the sleep apnea and sleep space, and centered around dental and really a mouthpiece that you're going to hear about. And Pharmajet, this is a company that we have invested a small amount in historically, but we're very excited about this company. Both these companies, interestingly, are growth companies. They're later stage mature companies, both run by finance veterans. And I think that shows in the way these companies are built. So without further ado, I want to turn the floor over to Mike to get things started.
Great, thank you very much. So as Tobin mentioned, well, last week we focused on two earlier stage medical device companies. This week we're focusing on two companies that are actually commercially marketing right now. Both have reasons to target a capital raise at this time in their growth, and they have specific uses for them. First off is going to be Zephyr Sleep Technologies. Paul Ketterford is the founder, CEO, owner, and he's going to lead us off. Paul, please start.
Hi, my name is Paul Catterford. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Zephyr Sleep Technologies. My background, 15 years of venture capital, invested in some 25 companies, had offices in Palo Alto, California. 3 of those companies were unicorns, so we traded those to over $1 billion in value. Left venture capital and became a worked at a university incubator, spun out 6 companies, and decided to buy one of the companies and be an entrepreneur. And I'm going to share that opportunity with you today. Zephyr Sleep Technologies. We deal with the sleep disordered breathing marketplace, which affects 1 in 4 people, and an incident rate of 7 million new Americans a year contract the disease. Why is that? We have an increasingly obese demographic and an aging demographic. I like investing in things that are participating in a rising tide. We have consumer awareness that's being driven by Fitbit, Apple, wearables, etc. The dental industry is changing. Dentists are looking for new sources of revenue and new treatments that they can offer their patients. We're in the middle of a healthcare crisis in treating obstructive sleep apnea. There's only 3,500 boarded sleep physicians, and the sleep physicians are looking for alternative channels to deliver not only diagnosis, but treatment. And the market needs a treatment alternative modality change. CPAP is great therapy, but it's not for everybody. So how's how's obstructive sleep apnea treated? 2 principal treatment modalities: continuous positive airway pressure, CPAP. It's great. It's highly efficacious, but it's poorly tolerated and there's poor compliance. Let's look at the alternative treatment, which is getting much better adoption in the EU than it is in the US. It's only 60% efficacious, it's well tolerated, and there's high compliance. Let's talk a little bit more about oral appliances. Given a choice, a patient's almost always going to choose an oral appliance over CPAP. Why is that? Patients sleep with dental appliances all the time. They use them for orthodontics, retainers, teeth whitening trays, night guards, or bruxing guards. Patient preference, easy access is going to be driving demand. What's the problem with oral appliances? Why don't they always work? Why aren't they only 60% efficacious? Well, we don't know why. We don't know how, and we don't know for which patients it will work and will not work. What are the implications? Dentists are reluctant to provide treatment to their patient base. They cannot tolerate a 40% failure rate. Dental teams, these are the people at the coalface that are dealing with the patients. They are afraid to talk about treatment. And as a result, sleep physicians are reluctant to prescribe treatment, and they do so only after CPAP fails. Well, we've changed all of that with our medical device. One of my co-founders is Dr. John Remmers. Some of you may know John. He was one of the original inventors of the auto CPAP, the standard for getting to a CPAP treatment today. We've created something called the Matrix Plus. It's an FDA cleared appliance. This was a cleared medical device. It was a de novo approval, approved in the fall of 2018. We're already installed in over 350 dental clinics all over North America. And what do? We do 2 things. We do a test, an overnight test of the patient, and we determine if the patient can be treated with an oral appliance, getting rid of that 40% failure rate. And we tell you, the dentist, exactly within 0.2 millimeters, how to configure that oral appliance. The dentist then completes records, delivers the oral appliance a few days later. Dentists want in. They have a typical dentist has a 2,000 patient practice. Over 75 of their patients are either on CPAP, failed CPAP, or told to get on CPAP. This is a revenue increase of 10 to 15%, and this is what dentists are looking for. The product is eligible for medical billing. It's easy to implement. It's easy to talk about. It uses existing infrastructure, so the intraoral scanning systems, and it's a team-driven activity. They now have an FDA-cleared, clinically validated treatment planning system and workflow, and this is going to help them build credibility with the referring sleep physicians. We're not going to hire 25, 30 salespeople and start banging on dentist doors. We've decided to go through established channels with established relationships. We've got go-to-market partnerships with medical billing service providers, oral appliance therapy providers, dental labs, study clubs, and education providers. This next slide, and I just want to share a little bit about where we're at. So we started our company and started delivering our product about 2 years ago. We are now on a fast ramp up. Our goal over the next 3 years is to grow the company to about 5 to 8% market.
Paul, we have about 1 minute left here.
Thank you. About 5 to 8% market penetration, and then we're going to sell the company to an established dental technology provider. We have, we already have a relationship with Dentsply Sirona. We already have a relationship with Align Technologies, Invista, Henry Schein, Straumann, Glidewell. All of these companies are looking for new treatments that they can offer their customer base. This is an opportunity to invest in a re-startup. It's like a startup in that it's an aggressive valuation, but we have no technology risk, no product development risk, no regulatory risk, no scaling risk, no market adoption risk. We're ready to relaunch our company after the COVID slowed us down for a little while after Labor Day. And that's all I've got for now, Michael.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul. And now we'll have Dr. Richardson with a few observations from our dental experts on network, as well as a few questions of her own. Thank you. Please take it away, Katie.
Sorry about that. In my research, I talked to not only dentists, but also pulmonary sleep medicine specialists that are part of our network. And they definitely all agree that for patients with mild to moderate sleep apnea, that dental appliances, or what are called oral mandibular advancement devices, prevent the tongue from blocking the throat and or move the jaw forward during sleep to keep the airway open, which is beneficial for sleep apnea. As I mentioned, the oral appliances are best used for only mild to moderate sleep apnea or snoring without sleep apnea. But if you have moderate to severe sleep apnea, CPAP is still the first line. There are risks of these devices. They include bite changes, pain in the jaw or TMJ pain, soreness or looseness of teeth, dental work replacement needs, excessive drooling, and sometimes dry mouth. But there are benefits. So they can improve the symptoms, again, in some cases, and they offer an option for patients who don't tolerate CPAP. It's definitely easier when you're traveling with less equipment, and it works without electricity. I'm going to include one quote from a general dentist that I spoke with. The concept of a general dentist being able to offer an appliance to replace a CPAP is very appealing. We are frequently asked about devices patients can wear to replace their CPAP. The issue has always been we have no mechanism in place to monitor effectiveness. So if we can prescribe an oral appliance and go, so if we prescribe and go against physician orders of CPAP and the patient has a complication, we are at risk. If the Zephyr appliance offers a way to monitor patients and provides conclusive data that the appliance is effective, this will be a game changer for the dental community. So my question for you, Paul, I'd like to know a little bit more about the overnight test, how it works, what you're truly assessing, because the other thing in talking to our sleep medicine specialist, even if an oral device is prescribed and the dentist puts that in, it's still recommended that they follow up for another sleep study, which can be done at home, to determine if that's actually reducing or improving the sleep apnea itself.
Yeah, so what we do is we do what's known as an overnight titration study. So what we do is the patient goes home with the device, and we actually move their mandible through a range of motion set up by the dentist over the course of 2 nights, checking for pulse oximetry, a whole bunch of inputs, and our artificial intelligence, machine learning driven algorithms determine prospectively if the patient will respond to treatment. Sensitivity specificity is in the high 80, low 90s, and we're clinically validated. Over 300 patients have been through clinical validation to determine whether the algorithms and so forth are indeed effective. Part of our standard protocol is to schedule a follow-up home sleep test using a static oral appliance that we would prescribe. I would tell you that our predictive value, PPV, is over 98%. So we've had very few patients not respond to treatment after the 60-day time frame. Just want to mention one other thing is of the 302 patients that we did through clinical trials, We actually have an indication for use approval by the FDA to treat severe obstructive sleep apnea. We were actually able to treat over 55% of those patients with severe. Part of the challenge is oral appliances aren't yet cleared for severe patients in treatment. However, we're working with 2 of our oral appliance therapy partners to see if we can do a joint product, so an appliance that's selected using the Matrix Plus treatment planning system and their appliance, bring the 2 of them together to be able to treat those severes. So it's something, it's a work in progress, but mild to moderate is definitely what general dentists should be treating anyway. There's fewer comorbidities and other related challenges in treating the illness.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Paul. I do have a couple of questions from the business side with myself and Q&A. So with that, I want to move on to our second presenter. Heather Potters is going to be presenting for Pharmajet. Pharmajet is a needle-free injection system. I mean, if you've ever watched Star Trek or any spy show where they knock somebody out with a jet gun in their neck, this is what we're talking about. But this is real. And this is efficient, and this is exciting because especially in a post-COVID world, you need the best bang for your buck and the fastest way to vaccinate. So Heather, please take it away.
Okay, super. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Pharmajet today. Pharmajet's a needle-free jet injection technology platform, and we provide a safe, fast, easy method of administration, alternative to needles, but we're specifically focused on vaccines for a reason. Oftentimes we make them work better. So on the right side, you'll see our 2 platforms, intradermal, 0.1 ml fixed dose into the skin, and intramuscular and subcutaneous, 0.5 ml into the muscle. Pharmajet has multiple firsts and onlys we've accomplished across both device platforms. All key regulatory approvals are in place for IM, sub-Q, and ID delivery. And we have registrations that span more than 42 countries with additional registrations underway. Volume manufacturing is established, validated, and audited multiple times. Versus needle-based delivery, we also have clinical claims of safety, efficacy, and non-inferiority. And in the case of vaccines delivered intradermally, and sometimes novel vaccines and therapeutics, we've demonstrated a superior immune response using fractional dose. So typically 60 to 80% less is the same or superior in immune response. These claims, together with 47 issued patents and trade secrets, help protect our market position, and we are the only commercial state needle-free technology appropriate for vaccine administration. And finally, the relationships that we have around the world with governments and NGOs and collaboration partners help support our initiatives and certainly reinforce the investment around our technology. So moving on to why we focus on vaccine administration. It's a large need, 2.5 billion annual immunizations, growing by the birth cohort and the number of vaccines that they receive, growing in perpetuity, and this has been added to most recently by the coronavirus outbreak. But needles are problems, and vaccines are standard of care, and there are more than 100 under development in the world. An estimated spend of about 37 billion in 2016, growing to well more than 100 billion now, especially with coronavirus. Pharmajet makes needles pointless. We're easy to use. You can see on the left side, there's no waste in our syringe. And because needle cannulas have waste, typically we capture 20% more out of the vials. We've demonstrated use in a number of venues, but typically we also see 20% more participation by getting rid of needles. And patient processing is faster, usually 2 to 3 times faster than needle-based delivery. We also have demonstrated acceptance around the world with large and small pharma, academic, government developers of vaccines. More than 60 collaborations across more than 100 distinct vaccine therapeutic candidates to date. And we've been used in more than 60 human clinical studies for a variety of both existing vaccines and novel vaccines. These are the 2 device platforms, along with some highlights about the use. We provide a fast jet of fluid into the body, faster than the nervous system can respond. In 1/10 of a second, it's delivered into the target tissue. We've tested the devices to 30,000 uses without failure and verified that the first injection and the last injection is exactly the same profile. So we've optimized it for delivery to specific target tissues and also making sure that it's very comfortable for the patient. Over time, our testing's also confirmed that by moving from the muscle to the skin, so functionally about 80% less from 0.5 to 0.1, is about the same in immune response. And we also enjoy global clinical claims of 60% less being superior. And for those of you who may be in healthcare, you realize that it's very difficult to deliver a man-to needle injection into the skin. It's slow and painful, and ours is just a simple push and click. But we access more antigen presenting cells, oftentimes making vaccines work better in an intradermal format. We have numerous global regulatory approvals, again, and all key credentials. We are a Class 2 medical device. And in addition to the regulatory protection that we enjoy, we also have 47 issued patent claims in PCT, non-PCT countries, a number of additional claims underway, trade secrets, and then again, the regulatory clearances that we have are unique to Pharmajet. In other words, no one can borrow from what we've created. And we estimate that we're 5 to 8 years ahead of anyone who would like to try. Our strategic pillars of focus on the intradermal product is polio eradication globally, an estimated 300 million dose annual need. The oral drops, which have a live virus, are being phased out. The injectable inactivated vaccine is 20 times more expensive. We manage a stockpile of our device for the World Health Organization, which is in use in countries like Pakistan, Cuba, Gavi, which subsidizes vaccine administration for 74 countries, has agreed to pay for our product for the countries adopting fractional dose delivery. And then there are numerous other vaccines that are intradermally recommended or used today, or where we've proven that functionally 80% less is the same in immune response, like HPV. On the far right, you'll see pandemic preparedness. We've been working with the US government around influenza stockpiling, and most recently that's turned into now 20 documented coronavirus 19 candidates moving forward across 9 countries. So it's no longer just a US pandemic preparedness activity, but the globe. We also have contracts around variable dose device platform development with the US government and vaccine evaluations. In the middle category, you'll see that largely our novel developments fall into infectious disease and oncology, but in the case of nucleic acid vaccines, DNA and messenger RNA, we tend to see several-fold better immune response versus needle-based delivery and no requirement of electroporation. In terms of our fundraising, we've raised about $6 million to date this year from our existing capital structure. $65 million to date has been raised by Pharmajet's, or by me for Pharmajet's investors who are high net worth family office investors primarily. We have an additional $2 million remaining in our convertible note. We also are seeking $4 million for a capacity increase that we've just started, which will increase our capacity 5-fold for the intradermal product, cutting our cost of goods sold by about 50%. We are revenue-based, $5 million last year, headed towards 11 on an annualized basis, gives us an EBITDA break even. And with that new capacity, we surpass a $20 million revenue mark, and again, cut our cost of goods sold by 50%. We have a tremendous team of people who have been there and done that in medical devices globally. My background is actually private equity, and I'm one of the co-founders of the business. I'd be delighted to address questions,
Heather.
Science,
Yep.
as well as
Heather.
more information on our portfolio.
Yep.
I'm a pediatrician by background, and so Pharmajet has always been fascinating to me. I know that there are many needle-free injection technologies that are on the market, and that these technologies are being backed, as you mentioned, by the WHO, the CDC, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is super exciting. I also know that success depends on the ability of that liquid jet, which I believe yours is spring powered, to penetrate the skin and the underlying fat layer without harming the skin or the integrity of the drug molecule. It sounds like you guys have nailed that, which is exciting. And benefits include avoiding needle stick injuries, higher compliance, They're reusable and thus have a lot less waste, as you mentioned, and definitely better for those with a needle phobia. I have a couple of quotes from pediatricians, but I'm going to leave those till later and just allow you to answer one question for me, and that's on side effects. Because I do understand that there's often some increased pain potentially with these injections and also increased local site reactions. Can you answer that for me?
Yes. So first of all, just to clarify, we are the only needle-free technology that reaches all target tissues. And historically, vaccines are destined for the muscle or the intradermal space, with maybe 2 exceptions that could be sub-Q. So all other needle-free technologies fall into that sub-Q space. And so consequently, we're the only ones focused on vaccines. And the job of a vaccine is to create an antibody response. So whether or not it's needles or needle-free, it's about a little bit of potential itching, swelling, redness, and bruising. And we are ever so slightly higher in that reactogenicity than needle-based delivery. Our youngest patients are 6 weeks old. Our oldest patient has been about 89. But in that kind of standard healthy tissue, it's a very comfortable experience. And I've served it as a guinea pig in many of our studies. So with our larger injection, it's a little bit like a rubber band snap for me in certain vaccines, because we don't change the pH balance. If the vaccine stings, we don't change that. But there are certain things that I don't feel at all. And I would say that the statistics we keep about post-market surveillance, which ranges from 89 to 99% patient and caregiver preference, tends to confirm why it is that people probably prefer a needle-free injection. And in the case of intradermal, which is very painful with needles, we have 100% patient and caregiver preference. So it's a very small amount going into the dermal tissue. And so while, again, we're not going to change the profile of a vaccine, this is all delivered in less than 1/10 of a second. And I would highly encourage anyone to look at our Pharmajet YouTube channel, because you'll see patient and caregiver experience there, as well as, you know, we inspire more people to show up regardless of venue, whether or not it's a sophisticated clinic or a field assessment.
So one follow-up from my side, we are getting a question from one of our viewers, specifically addressing the comparison to the microneedle in terms of vaccine delivery.
So in the case of a microneedle, if it's a needle array that's in a patch, that would be a combination product process. So phase 1, 2, 3, and about a 10-year haul. Pharmajet's a little bit like open source, where we have 510(k) clearance for our devices for liquid medicines and vaccines generally. And then on top of that, we have clinical claims. But it is discretion of the healthcare provider or user of that technology to determine what they're going to inject. In the case of microneedles that might be a small intradermal needle array that goes on the end of a needle syringe, there are certain cases where those are being used, but in many cases it actually leaves scarring and it's open for reuse. So in the case of our intradermal product for polio eradication, we actually were superior in immune response to certain needle groups, and 2 other potential needle-free candidates were eliminated because they were inferior in immunogenicity to Pharmajet.
And to be clear, Heather, as a result, you have approvals for a wider range of vaccines and a faster to market profile than a lot of the other needleless delivery systems.
Correct, and the firsts and onlys also include FDA CE mark and the only WHO pre-qualification for needle-free ever issued for both of our device platforms.
Excellent, thank you very much. We've got some follow-up questions specifically around financials and how we make that work, as well as your partnerships, which I know are many. We're going to cover that in the end Q&A session. Before we jump to that, I know Bob Velez has invited a number of people that are currently attending here. Bob, would you like to follow up in terms of how people can get more information?
Great. Thanks both to Heather and Paul. Great. We really like both companies. Appreciate you spending time, as well as everybody on the phone. So.